So I heard that you were being very mindful of keeping silence, and that this is a new thing for the group, you know, that usually in your retreats you don't keep silence. But we found that it's very, very helpful for people to have time to really think things through themselves. So we'll keep silence until partway through lunch, and then someone will ring a bell, and then you can talk. But try not to make it sound like a restaurant where everybody's talking at once very loudly, chattering about this and that, okay? The reason for the silence, like I said, is really so that we can become more aware of what's going on in our mind and think about the things that we heard in the teachings, which are very valuable, because so often in our busy life, we're busy running here and there and here and there, and we may hear things that go, oh, I should think about that, but then we're on to the next thing, and we've forgotten it. Okay, so this time of silence, it's not unfriendliness. It's not, I'm not talking to you. It's, it's just we give everybody space to go inside. And then in the afternoon, you can talk. Yeah. Okay. Because we really want you to have the time to think about the teachings. So today we're going to be talking about fortitude, yeah? And like I said yesterday, I don't like the usual translation of patience, because to me it implies you're waiting for somebody to do something, okay? Whereas fortitude implies that you have some internal strength and you're not overcome by difficulties. And I think that that kind of internal strength is incredibly important for Dharma practice. Bodhisattvas certainly have to have that, because if you're going to work for the benefit of sentient beings, there has to be strength, not domination, not power over, not that, but a kind of confidence that you're not going to fall apart in difficulties. Okay? And so when we talk about fortitude, they talk about 3 different kinds. And one kind is when we're criticized, we're insulted, and so on. So how to not endure it, like grit your teeth and hold in your anger. No, that's not useful at all. But how to work with the mind so we don't fall apart when we're criticized, when our faults are pointed out, and so on. Because as we know through our life, that happens, doesn't it? Yeah? Anybody here who's never been criticized? Anybody here who's never had their faults pointed out in public? Come on, this is a universal experience. Yeah. And needless to say, sometimes we are the people criticizing other people and insulting them. Oh my goodness. Because our anger takes over. Okay, so that's one kind of fortitude. Another kind of fortitude is when we're sick or when we're injured. And those situations too come in our life, even if we don't want them. Yeah, we get sick. we stub our toe or break a leg or who knows what. And again, to not fall apart with like, oh no, my life is over, kind of despair when things like that happen. But, an ability to not just gritting our teeth, but really learning to look at situations differently so that anger, discouragement, and so on don't arise. Okay? Then the third kind of fortitude is the fortitude to practice the Dharma. Because as we know, sometimes our buttons get pushed when we come to teachings, yeah? Or our buttons get pushed, or we get discouraged. Maybe we see the actions of somebody who we've admired as a Dharma practitioner, and now they're not behaving the way we think they should, and we, kind of go, oh, Dharma doesn't work, which is not true, But how do we keep from, just kind of giving up on the Dharma, so to speak? This bleeds into joyous effort, which we'll talk about tomorrow morning. And then another kind, another part of the fortitude of practicing the Dharma is it's not, sometimes some things are not so easy to understand. Yeah, like emptiness. Anybody have difficulty understanding emptiness? Yeah. Okay. So again, to be able to have the inner strength to keep at it, keep learning, to just not just say, oh, this is all rubbish, blah, which doesn't help at all. Okay, so we'll be talking about those three kinds of fortitude. One of the bases for this is Shantideva's text, Engaging in the Bodhisattva Deeds, chapter 6. Yeah, I learned that chapter because we will get to the prayers, by the way. I'm just doing a Lama Zopa where we give a long introduction, motivation. You know that? Yeah. Who knows when it will end? Okay. Yeah, so I learned chapter 6 of Shantideva's text because I didn't think I had a problem with anger. I was a nice person. Yeah. It was other people who were not nice to me, And whenever there was a conflict, it was always their fault. Okay, let's get that straight. Okay, it's always somebody else's fault, and they started it. And I didn't yell and scream. I was the kind of person who got angry and just went away and had a pity party and sulked and cried. Okay, anybody else like that? How many of you are the pity party sulk ones? Oh, and how many of you are the explosive ones? And how many of you go back and forth between the two? Yeah, it doesn't matter whether we explode or implode because we're still angry and it still affects ourselves and others, okay? So Lama sent me to work in a Dharma center, and well, how much of the story am I going to tell you? Oh, poor me. Yes, I was sent to be the disciplinarian of the macho Italian monks. I see you're understanding. Okay, so macho men are one thing. Women, you probably agree. Macho Italian monks are that on steroid, you know. So the last thing they wanted was to have a disciplinarian who was an American woman, who was a nun, who, you know, wasn't shy, usually. And so there was just a little bit of conflict. Uh, yeah. And they didn't like me very much. And I was also the SBC, the spiritual program director. Yeah. And so they didn't like me. They made fun of me. They ridiculed me. They said no to my face when all I was doing was telling them what Lama wanted and the way things were supposed to be in the center. And they didn't want to hear it. And anyway, so I would just, they tormented me all the time. And every evening I would go back and take out Shantideva's text, chapter 6, read it, meditate on it, calm down a little bit until the next morning when I tried to wake them up to go to morning puja, or went into my office and found that the work I had left there had been confiscated. You know, nice things like that. And then I would get angry all over again. So, you know, if my teachers had told me beforehand that I had a problem with anger, I would have said, no, I don't. I don't scream. I don't throw things. You know, my feelings are hurt. Yeah, but if they had told me that, I wouldn't have understood it. So they put me in a situation where my anger was on display. Yeah, and I had heard enough teachings to know that anger was a defilement, that anger creates a lot of negative karma. So I couldn't just push it away. You know, I knew I had to deal with it somehow. So that's how I learned chapter 6. Mm. I'll tell you a continuation of that story, maybe later. But yeah. So they say you don't have to. You know, part of fortitude is the things that all three types of fortitude have in common is how to deal with unpleasant experiences, how to work with your own suffering instead of getting angry. Because usually when we're unhappy, when we're miserable, when we're suffering, we get angry, don't we? Yeah. Even you get the flu, you get angry at whoever that stranger was that sneezed and, you know, spread their germs around. Yeah. We all, you know, we're always getting angry at one thing or another. So this is a very important paramita or perfection to work on in our minds. And I think especially in this world today, it seems that things in the Netherlands are calmer? Your political situation? Um, no? Oh, oh, is Trump your president too? Uh, yeah, really? Oh, huh. Okay, I don't know much about Dutch politics. I guess it's time to learn. Yeah, but in my country, I mean, the political situation is so polarized that sometimes people can't even talk to each other, let alone about politics, about just daily things, because they just get so angry when somebody disagrees. Yeah. So this makes for a very unhappy society, unhappy individuals, unhappy groups. Yeah, and it stirs up a lot of political trouble. Trying to be so tactful. Yeah. Because, like I said, to me, it's not politics, it's about ethics. And so, to me, what's important is ethical conduct, being honest, and so on. But also, an ethical value is being compassionate. Yeah. Wanting the best for other living beings. Yeah. And to me, that's a value that I hold very strongly. That, unfortunately, there's some people who have power, hold power more strongly than compassion. Yeah. And it makes for a lot of unhappiness and problems. Yeah. So how do we work with that kind of situation? Yeah. And yeah, and keep an optimistic mind. Learn how to talk to people that we wouldn't ordinarily talk to, and not ostracize people who we share the land with, who we share the society with, and not just say they're evil people, get out of here, okay? So, and this is another thing, if we were going to work with our anger, to realize that there's no such thing as an evil person. Okay? There's no such thing as an evil person. Why not? Because everybody has the Buddha nature. Everybody has potential. Everybody can develop their good qualities. Nobody is hopeless. Yeah. So we cannot just say somebody is evil and either they committed a crime or they committed a crime and then got elected. You know, uh, whatever it is, we cannot just put that label on somebody and say, they're evil. Yeah, get rid of them. Yeah. Yeah, that's really quite a mistaken view. One time I was asked to give a talk at a high school in a very conservative area. And afterwards, one student asked if he could speak to me. And, and then we spoke, and he said, "Is there such a thing as a devil? Is there a devil who takes over your mind and makes you do negative things, who makes you evil?" He was asking a sincere question because he had been taught, in a certain brand of religion, that beware of the devil. And I said, no, there's no such thing as a devil. Yeah. Nobody else takes over your mind and makes you do horrible things. Yeah. And then I spoke a little bit about our self-centered attitude and how our self-centered attitude is what makes us do harmful actions. Yeah, so there's no external being who harms us. Yeah, the real problem is our own self-centeredness, and we'll get into that. Yeah, it's a wonderful topic. Yeah, I say that sarcastically because we think our self-centeredness is our best friend. Our self-centeredness looks out for us. And we've been taught that if we don't look out for ourselves, who's going to look out for us? If we don't stick up for ourselves, nobody else is. If we don't demand that things change, then they won't, you know. And so we kind of start to trust our self-centeredness in a way that makes us do things that bring us more suffering and misery. Okay? So the self-centeredness is a very deceptive mind. You know, all of our afflictions are deceptive minds. Yeah? Attachment is based on exaggerating or projecting goodness that isn't there. Anger is based on exaggerating or projecting negativity that isn't there. Self-centeredness exaggerates or projects that I am the center of the world. Yeah? And the problem with the world is that people don't follow what I want. Yeah? I see some other people maybe understand what I'm thinking. Yeah? Yeah, we all are the centers of our own world, and we think that everybody in the world should know that. Not just that I'm the center of my world, but I am the center of the world. Yeah. So that everything I think is true, everything I want is should happen. All my expectations are the way things should be. All my advice should be followed. Anybody else have? Yeah. I call these the rules of the universe. Does that translate? Okay. Yeah. When I talked about this in Switzerland, like the idea, or Germany, you know, rules of the universe. I don't know. To me, it was kind of completely obvious, but apparently it didn't translate well. But look like you guys got it, huh? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, my rules of the universe cause me to get angry and upset sometimes because people should do what I say, and I shouldn't even have to say it. They should just know it and do it automatically, right? So I have advice for so many people on how they can improve. Yeah. And I give my advice with great compassion. Like, do it. This is for your own good. But, you know, my advice should be followed. and I have lots of advice for everybody. Yeah. If you ever need, well, I do two things very well. I complain. Yeah, I have a graduate degree in complaining. I have a graduate degree in giving unwanted advice. But it's only unwanted from other people's perspective because they're too stupid to realize that my advice is needed and is very good advice. Oh, I'm glad you all agree. Okay, now I can give you some advice. So, yeah, we get in a lot of trouble through this self-centered attitude, and it closes us off from other people who we just deem as being too stupid, to understand how wise we are. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you all agree with me. So, so all my views are correct views. I would never have an incorrect view of anything or anybody. Everything I think is correct because I would never think anything wrong. Everything I believe is the way it is because I would never believe anything that was inaccurate. So, based on that, then everybody should do as I say. And listen to my advice. So, let's see. I live in a community of 22 people. I'm one of them, so I have advice for the other 21. Yeah. I have advice for our 4 cats. I have advice for the deer, for the cougar, for the bear, and for the turkeys. The turkeys really need my advice because in the springtime, you know what the turkeys do? You don't know, then come to the Abbey in the springtime. When they're trying, in your secondary schools, do you have proms? Do you have like some big celebration where everybody dresses up and you go on your first, a date? No? Oh, that's really too bad. Oh, because we have these in our high schools, where you dress up, you get a gown, and the guys actually put on a tux with a bow tie, strangling them, and they give you a corsage, and they ask you out and open the door for you, and this kind of rubbish. And the turkeys in the springtime, they're, it's kind of mating time. So they're trying to figure out who goes to the prom, this big dance, with who. So all the male turkeys are going around. They think they're peacocks. Yeah, peacocks, beautiful things. Male turkeys, they show their feathers. No comparison to peacocks. The female turkeys agree. They just ignore the male turkeys. So the male turkeys are going around with their feathers out, wiggling like this, challenging each other to a football game or a soccer tournament to see who's going to be the strongest. And they make a racket. Yeah. And the female turkeys just continue walking, eating, like ignoring them. okay? The male turkeys get so crazy, yeah, that, on the back of our meditation hall, it says, it's a glass window, that they look on the window and they see a reflection of themselves and they think it's another male turkey who they have to, fight with. So they start pecking at the glass window and make a racket when people are trying to meditate inside, because they're going, yeah. And finally, after inflicting this on the human beings who have, they figure out who's going to the prom with who. They go in the upper meadow for a while, go to the prom, and then you know how it is when you're in high school. Well, eventually they just go out to the forest, and then several weeks later we see little baby chicks, turkey chicks coming. Yeah. So why did I get into that? I mean, it's sentient beings, no matter who they are, have anger. Yeah. The turkeys are going after each other. Yeah, the deer sometimes, when they have their brack, or the moose like that. Yeah. Yeah, so human beings do the same thing. Yeah. And it causes a lot of pain and misery, not just to other people, but to the person who's angry. Yeah. Are any of you happy when you're angry? Yeah. Yes or no? No. Okay. Yeah. When we're angry, we're miserable. So why do we say anger is good? Yeah. If anger makes us miserable, why do we say anger is good? Yeah. And the reasons we give for anger. Yeah. It's only through anger that I know that something is wrong and needs to be corrected. Yeah. I once was asked to give a talk at a university. They had a department on communication and conflict resolution. So I talked about the disadvantages of anger to these people who are specialists in resolving conflicts and in communication skills. Yeah. They did not like what I say, and they got angry at me. Yeah, because they said anger is good. Anger tells us when something is wrong, as if we only know that something is wrong if we're angry. And I've heard people who are activists in society say the same thing. We need righteous anger. Yeah, because it's only with anger that we tell the authorities or whoever the party we're in conflict with that they're wrong and they need to change. Okay, and so that becomes the strategy. Yeah, I have righteous anger. Yeah, these people are wrong. I demand that they change. Yeah, you ever heard, aware of, yeah, the language is, we demand that you do this and that, or we demand that you stop this and that. Yeah. So no dialogue, we're just demanding. Yeah. And we're angry. So we yell, we scream, we make insulting placards. We write horrible, personal critiques of other people, and we expect them to say, "Oh, thank you so much for telling us how to improve. We will do what you say." Do they? No. When somebody demands things of you, do you just say, "Oh, how kind you are for giving me advice. I will do as you say"? No. Yeah. We say, "Mind your own business," and that's when we're being polite. We say other things when we're not so polite, but I won't repeat those words here. Yeah. And, I really saw, and it oftentimes then devolves into violence. Yeah. I grew up during the Vietnam War, and some of my friends were getting sent out to Vietnam. Some came back alive, some came back in body bags. And my generation, we were very anti-war. We didn't take sides in the war. We were just anti-war. So it's different than the protests that happened in college campuses about the Israeli-Hamas conflict. Yeah, where they had definitely taken sides. But we didn't take sides. We were just anti-war. So one day I was at an anti-war protest at UCLA. That's the school I was at the time. And we were lined up here. The cops were lined up here. We had other names for them. Cops is just, it's a slang word, but cops that's okay. Yeah. Oh, to call them that. Yeah. But we didn't even call them that. Anyway, they were lined up here. We were lined up here. And, shouting. And the cops had their helmets, their riot gear, their shields, the whole thing, anticipating violence. And the student that I was standing next to in the middle of this picked up a rock or a brick or some heavy, big argument and threw it at the cops. Yeah. And I went, no, that's not what we do. I didn't say that to him, but it just really clicked in my mind that when you get violent and you get angry, your mind becomes exactly like the mind of the people you're protesting against. And on a personal level, when we get angry and lose our temper, whether we explode or implode, our mind becomes exactly like the mind of the person we're angry at. Yeah, because anger is always based on projecting negativity that isn't there or exaggerating something about a situation, and then not being able to tolerate it, wanting to strike back or get away. Okay? Anger does not arise in a mind that is happy. Yeah, even righteous anger. I'm not sold on righteous anger. It's still anger. Yeah. When we have happy minds, yeah, when we have some feeling of optimism, then we don't get angry. Yeah. A happy person doesn't wake up in the morning and say, oh, like this morning, it was beautiful, wasn't it? The sun is shining, and there's fresh air. I feel good. I'm with kind people. Yeah. When you wake up with that feeling, you don't say, okay, I'm going to go out and kill somebody. I'm going to go out and tell somebody off. No, it's only when we're unhappy. Yeah. And when we're unhappy, what is one of the key, what makes us unhappy? Okay. Yeah. We're circling back here. What makes us unhappy is our self-centered thoughts. Yeah. Why are we unhappy? Because I have expectations of what should happen, and the world is not conforming to my expectations, and it should. Yeah. Now, never mind that I haven't checked out all my expectations with other people. Never mind that they may have different opinions because their opinions are wrong. But, I have expectations and they are not being followed. And my happiness is the most important thing in the universe. Yeah, and my suffering hurts more than anybody else's. So I should always have my way. And when people don't do what I want, I'm angry. Does that ring any bells? Yeah. Okay. So, so the self-centered thought really lies, beneath all of our negative actions, whether it's negative actions created out of attachment, negative actions created out of anger or ignorance. The self-centered thought is always underneath. Yeah. And it's difficult to overcome because we have this feeling of a self, of an I here, that we never question. There's a big fat I. Yeah, not fat physically, but a big I. That's like, I exist. Yeah, first thing, I exist. Okay, then comes attachment to the I, to the self. And then from that comes, I'm the center of the universe. Yeah, and all my expectations should come true. And that makes us very unhappy. But it's difficult to see because we've been following the self-centered thought for a long time. Yeah, and we think it takes care of us. So it's difficult to really see that it harms. In the same way that it's difficult sometimes to see that our anger is harmful, not just to others, but to ourselves. Yeah, it's sometimes difficult to see that our clinging attachment is harmful because we confuse clinging attachment with caring about someone. Yeah, we often can't tell the difference. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, as we begin to look at anger and look at fortitude, how to deal with our anger. Yeah. Another aspect of anger is that the more we are attached to something, the more the angrier we get when we can't get it. Okay? So the more I am attached, to my computer understanding what I tell it to do, instead of having its own mind and shutting things down. Yeah. Do you have a computer like mine that shuts down your file when you're in the middle of working on it? No? Oh, see, I'm jealous. Mine will shut it down. Yeah. It will make things appear that I haven't clicked on. Yeah. So, but I'm very attached because I was told that iPads are intuitive and apples are so good. I guess they're intuitive for some people, but not for me. Yeah, they make up all these little icons that make no sense. Yeah, and they expect me to understand their stupid squiggles. Yeah, whereas I would design the icons differently so that somebody could intuitively know what you were supposed to do. Yeah. But the more I'm attached to my computer operating the way I think it should, the angrier I get when it doesn't. Okay. So I got to tell you another story. Yeah, so, the more attached we are, the more expectations we have of someone or something, yeah, the more upset we get. So, no, I'll skip that story. Too much to tell. I'll tell you that story. It's a fun story. Okay, so halfway through my university studies, I had an argument with my parents, and they said, okay, you can support yourself now. And I said, good, I want to support myself. So I got 2 jobs for my last 2 years in college. And this was the time in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, of marijuana research. So this is how I earned my tuition. I worked on 2 marijuana research projects. Yeah, so some were under the auspices of the government, and some were personal ones that I decided to explore on my own. Sound good? Okay, so we were, in one of them, we were measuring, it was an interesting thing, because the people came in several times, and one time they smoked a joint and they got a placebo drink. The second time they got an alcoholic drink and they smoked a placebo joint. The third time they smoked a placebo joint, but they drank liquid THC. And the fourth time, both things were placebos. Okay, so during these, they would come in, they would be in the lab for several hours, because you got to get them loaded and then run these tests. And then you have to wait until they're, unloaded to let them go. So one of the tests we were doing was, they wanted to see if people, to compare reflex responses. So things would come up on a screen and you had to press this button or that button to say what it is, okay? And so it was testing your response, like to see if you can drive, if you had the wherewithal to drive. So we had to do this, and we put them in this kind of thing, and they sat in there, and they saw images, and they had to click. Well, that machine was an ancestor to my computer. Yeah, and it would go on the blink. It would break down right in the middle of when we're supposed to be giving them a test. Yeah, and you had to give them the test because I think the grant wasn't done whereby you could say, okay, that, the machine didn't work, so come back another time and we'll get you loaded another time on another, and run the test again. We couldn't do that. So, so we had to make the machine work. So I have the mechanical ability of a year, not even a toddler, of a baby. Yeah. Mechanical things are just not my thing. Okay, because they don't make sense, meaning I don't understand them. Okay, so we figured out how to make the machine work. We kicked it. Yeah. But we couldn't be angry when we kicked it, because if we kicked it too hard, it would break, and that even more. So, okay. So the point here is, when you're attached, when you really want this machine to work, because it has to work, then the more upset you tend to get when it doesn't work. Okay. Now, it wasn't my research project. I was just an employee. So I didn't get so upset when it didn't work. But I got upset enough to kick it to get it to work. Okay. But my point here is the more attached you are, the angrier you get when things don't work out, okay, the way you want. Yeah. Okay, let's pause here. Yes, after a long motivation. And visualize the Buddha. Yeah, do the recitations. And in the time of the silent meditation, again, just a few minutes to calm the mind. Maybe just ponder what you've heard so far, okay? Or think about the four immeasurables, yeah? If we say, may all sentient beings have happiness and its causes, if you really felt that, would you get angry? Okay. So imagine the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas in the space in front. You're surrounded by all sentient beings. And we're leading them in taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. And then seeing the faults of the self-centered attitude, seeing the faults of having our rules of the universe. Let's open our mind to see that every living being is exactly like us, wanting happiness and not suffering. And to have an attitude of care and concern and respect for all living beings, even if we have different opinions on things or do things in different ways. Because underneath any conflict is simply everybody on all sides wanting to be happy and not experience suffering. And based on that, cultivated an intention to really live our lives in a way where we can create well-being for every living being as much as we can in whatever way we can, big or small, but without expecting ourselves to be able to make everybody happy. The wish for beings to be well and happy is, from our side, what's important. And on that basis, then let's generate the bodhicitta, aspiring for full awakening, so that we'll really have the compassion, the skillful means, the wisdom, the finesse to know really how to best benefit others. So, I thought in these sessions to go through some of the things that I learned from chapter 6 in Shantideva. So I refer you to Shantideva's book, to His Holiness Dalai Lama's book called Healing Anger, which is based on Shantideva's text. And then I did a book too called Working with Anger. And at the end of that, in one of the appendixes, I kind of listed out the, just in simple phrases, some of the antidotes to anger that Shantideva had proposed in his book. Okay? So I thought to go through some of these, and because these are all antidotes, how to train our mind to think in difficult situations so that we don't lose our temper, harm somebody physically or verbally, and put the seeds of harmful karma in our own mind streams. Okay, so a few general things. Don't expect your anger to disappear overnight. Yeah, we have trained ourselves well in anger. Yeah, and the way we exaggerate and project just kind of happens without even realizing it happens. So it's going to take some time to dismantle, but as we practice any of the antidotes to anger, and there's a whole bunch of them, then we are slowly changing the way that we look at things, okay? And it's this change in how we think of things that really has the power to diminish the anger, okay? Now, some people, when they're angry, find that instead of thinking about an antidote, they find it helpful just to watch their anger, and just be mindful of it rising, be mindful of it ceasing, and some people find that method helpful. personally speaking, the way my mind works, I have to understand that a certain emotion is out of whack with reality, or that a certain view doesn't make sense. I have to understand it for me to be able to let it go, because I'm very good at ruminating. Okay? You know ruminating? Somebody said this. Why did they say that? I don't know. They're always making comments like that about me. And you know, I've known them for how many years? And I remember last year they made that disgusting comment about me, and they did it again this year. And even the year before they did it. And why did they do this? And I'll never understand them. But you know, they have mental problems. They're passive aggressive and they're psychotic. And you know, I just don't understand. We go round and around with a whole bunch of conceptualization about the person and the attitude, okay? So I, personally speaking, have to understand why what I am saying to myself, why what I am thinking is garbage. Yeah. If I don't understand that it's garbage, then I don't want to let it go. It's only when I understand that I'm seeing things incorrectly, believing something that's incorrect, that my mind changes. So what I'm saying here is there's different kinds of people. Some like to just watch the anger without thinking about it. And some of us like to look at how we're thinking, look at the stories that we make, and really change how we're looking at the situation so that we correct the way we're looking at it. So those are the antidotes that I'm going to explain, that Shantideva explained. Okay. So we have to practice these antidotes in our daily meditation practice when we're not in the middle of an argument. Why? Because when we're in the middle of the argument, our mind is already inflamed, okay? If you're going to put out a fire, it's much easier to put out a small fire than a big one. So, you know, to really change the way we look at people and things so that we don't get angry in the first place, and train our mind in that takes time. But also it makes us so familiar with these antidotes that then if we're not mindful and realizing that we're getting angry, and we get angry, when we can stop and take some distance from the situation, we're familiar enough with these antidotes that when we think about them, we can calm ourselves down fairly quickly. Okay? So we have to meditate on these. Okay. And I think a key is to realize that when we're angry, we are seeing the situation incorrectly. Yeah, because usually when we're angry, we believe exactly what we think. Yeah, because it's the self-centered attitudes, perspective, you know? So of course it tells the story in terms of that person's doing this and I'm an innocent victim. Yeah, and it's all your fault and the solution is you change. That's the story of the self-centered mind. But that doesn't work. So, you know, to really, as soon as you find yourself getting angry, saying something I'm thinking is skewed. Yeah. And through that, we become more aware of how we see everything in a self-centered way, and how that self-centered perspective is so narrow. Yeah. It's like looking at things through a periscope where you have a teeny tiny opening, and and you think that what you see in your teeny tiny opening is the whole world. Yeah, and we human beings tend to be a little bit arrogant and think that we're superior creatures on this planet, and in a personal way, whatever I think is correct. Yeah. And but we're actually not seeing the big picture. Because there's 8 billion human beings on this planet, at least. Yeah. And there's many more animals and insects. So if we have a runoff between all sentient beings minus one and one, who's going to win? All sentient beings minus one. The minus one just happens to be me. Yeah. So if we really believe in democracy, other people's welfare is more important than my own. And even if it's not the welfare of all sentient beings minus one, even if it's the welfare of one other sentient being, if I'm angry, I cannot at the same time look out and care for the welfare of that other being, because they are now my enemy, because they're not giving me what I want. They're interfering with me getting what I want. So they're the enemy. Yeah. What do we do with enemies? Yeah. We make nice, wonderful prayers for them. May they get hit by a truck. Yeah. Yeah. Or we're more direct. Go to hell. We're very flattering, aren't we? Yeah. We hate you. Go to hell. They have a special hell realm just for you. Yeah. And that technique, it just does not work because we're not seeing the situation accurately. We're just seeing it through the periscope of me, I, my, and mine. Okay, so let's start with criticism techniques. Yeah. Somebody is criticizing you for something you did. Yeah. And you're getting angry. Okay. Stop and think, did I do that action? And was that action a mistake? Okay. If it is a mistake, why am I saying, no, I didn't do it, it's your fault? If it's my mistake, everybody sees it, everybody knows it. Why am I blaming somebody else and denying my involvement? That's ridiculous, isn't it? It's like everybody's saying you have a nose on your face. Everybody sees our fault. Everybody sees our nose. What are we going to do? No, I don't have a big nose. It's all your projection. Yeah? No, I don't have a nose. I mean, come on. So if we made a mistake, if we have a fault, why not just say, yes, I did that. Yeah. And it was a mistaken action. I was upset. I'm sorry. Why not just say that? Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I should not say that. Because if I say that, then I look bad. They're going to lose respect for me. I'm going to appear weak. Yeah. And anyway, I was really right. Even if I was a little bit wrong, they still started it. Okay. In other words, what prevents us from even acknowledging a small mistake or a fault that we know we have and the world knows we have? Why do we keep denying it? We're just a little bit arrogant. Yeah. And so, what's the value of truth when you're arrogant and you can blame somebody else? Okay, it doesn't get us anywhere, does it? Okay, somebody's opening a window. Look, everybody look, all at once. Look, yes. Now turn your attention back here. No, this happens every course. Don't worry about it. Okay, so rather than deny it, admit it and hold ourselves accountable. If, on the other hand, somebody criticizes us for something that isn't true, it's like they're saying that you have antlers on your head. You check. No, no antlers. No, I didn't do that action. Again, why get angry? Yeah, if you did the action, admit it. No reason to get angry. If you didn't do that, realize that the other person doesn't have all the information. Yeah, so you want to sit down and talk with them. But again, no reason to get angry. Yeah. Do you believe me or do you think this is crazy? Yeah. No, you don't believe me?
I don't think it's crazy.
You what?
I don't think it's crazy.
You don't think it's crazy? Thank you. You agree with me. He's my friend because he agrees with me. Yeah. Yeah, that's the criteria of friends, isn't it? People who agree with us, people who will stick up for us. Enemy is somebody who doesn't agree with us, somebody who criticizes us. Yeah, we're so objective, aren't we? Yeah. It's all based on me. If somebody treats me well, they are a good person. If somebody doesn't treat me well, they are a horrible person. Yeah. If somebody treats my enemy well, they're my enemy. They're an enemy of me too. Okay, so if somebody's generous to me, they're a good person. If they're generous to my enemy, they're a bad person. Yeah. If somebody criticizes my enemy, they're a good person. If somebody criticizes me, they're a bad person. True or not true? Okay. So, there's no reason to get upset whether we made the mistake or have that fault or not. Yeah. Second, another antidote is to learn from the criticism that we receive. Yeah. Because so often we are totally blind to our own faults. And it's only when we crash and burn and we get criticized that we learn from our mistakes. Yeah, so, when we see that we made a mistake, instead of getting angry at the other person, and instead of getting angry at ourselves for making the mistake, just go back and think, then what was I thinking that I did that action? And how can I learn something from it? Yeah, because every time we fall down and go boom, there's a lesson to learn. There's something to learn. So it is like learning to walk. Yeah. When we're learning to, you watch babies learn to walk. Well, not babies, toddlers. Yeah. What do toddlers do? They fall down. Yeah. They make mistakes. Yeah. But what do? They pick themselves up afterwards. Yeah, unless mom and dad go, oh, you're hurt, oh, poor baby. And then the kid just learns to not try again. And they'll probably crawl for a long time. But if mom and dad just realize, oh, this is how a child learns, then, they stand up and they try and walk again. So when we fail at something, when we make a mistake, instead of blaming others, instead of criticizing ourselves, and getting depressed, to what can I learn? Yeah. And there's always something to learn in life. And again, when there's something to learn, then there's no reason to get angry. Because anyway, as Dharma practitioners, we're always saying, I want to be a better person. Aren't we? I want to overcome my faults. I want to overcome my self-centeredness. So here's somebody criticizing us, and they're telling us what our faults are that we don't see. So instead of getting angry at them, we should say, thank you very much. Hmm? Yeah. When Lama Yeshe told us the story of how he fled Tibet after the abortive uprising caused by Mao's communist troops coming into the Tibetan land and into Lhasa. He said that the monks just took their wooden bowl. Tibetan monks are not, they do everything with their, well, not everything, but their wooden bowl is really important. They took it with them to the mountains with some sampa, thinking that things would calm down in Lhasa, they'll be able to go back. Things didn't calm down. There was an uprising. His Holiness Dalai Lama fled into exile. And the monks from Sarajay, where Lama was, who had gone into the mountains to hide, then went, fled over the Himalayas into India as refugees. And when Lama told us this story, because usually when you look at this kind of thing, when people are refugees, and especially with communist China, it's like, Mao, is a manifestation of the devil. He harmed so many people. And, his policies, were really harmful. Okay. His policies were harmful. That doesn't mean he was evil. But his policies, millions and millions of people died under Mao's influence. Yeah. Lama became a refugee in India. And when he told us the story, he said, and he put his hands together, he said, I really have to thank Mao Zedong. Because if Mao Zedong had not invaded Tibet, I would have gotten my Geshe degree. I would have gone back to my hometown monastery without really deeply understanding the Dharma. And because I'm a Geshe, people would have come and they would make offerings to me and I would be respected, but I would never have really understood the Dharma well. So he said, I have to thank Mao Zedong for making me become a refugee, because he made me understand the real meaning and purpose of the Buddha's teachings. Imagine that. Could you say that about somebody who harmed you? But Lama was a real practitioner. Yeah. So when people harm us, there's something to learn from the situation. Yeah. There's some way to rethink the situation, to see what we can learn, or to see what we contributed to a situation. Because so often we think in black and white terms. Okay, we're getting divorced, it's his fault. He did this and this and this and this. I take out my whole list, 25,000 years we've been married, and I've kept a list of everything he's done wrong. I take it out. You did this, and you did this, and you did this, and this. I want a divorce. It's all your fault. I'm the innocent victim. Yeah, you want to make yourself an innocent victim? Okay, but you're not going to be very happy, and you're not going to learn anything. Yeah, because when there's a conflict, it's never black and white, that everything is one person's fault. Yeah, that doesn't mean that everybody is at fault. It means that there's many factors that influence a situation. Yeah, there's many factors. So we cannot just say one factor from one person is the source of the whole thing. We tend to do that, but it's actually not so simple, okay? Yeah. In a marriage, there's two people working, and there's miscommunication. Is miscommunication always one person's fault? I don't think so. So then people hear this. Yeah, okay, you can't really blame the other party. So what did they do? They say, it's all my fault. Yeah, if it's not all my spouse's fault, it's all my fault. Oh, because I did this and I did this, and I'm so unlovable anyway, and that person was foolish enough to love me, and and I just wasn't honest, and blah, 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 and I did this. Anyway, I'm unlovable, so no wonder everything failed. That's not true either. That's just a bunch of exaggerated rubbish. Okay, so, how to see, I give a marriage as the example of it, because this is a fraught subject, isn't it? When you divorce, it is not like, oh, well, if you're the one who wants the divorce, it's easy. If you're the one who doesn't want the divorce, it's painful. Yeah. But if you can look and say, what did I contribute to this miscommunication? What did I contribute to the conflict? And what did the other person contribute? Then we can learn something about our own behavior and what not to do next time. And we can learn something even when we watch people do things that are harmful to us. Yeah, to think, I'm not going to do that kind of thing to other people. Yeah, because it creates pain, it creates conflict. So, instead of getting angry, learn. Yeah. It's much easier to learn than to get angry. Anger gives us a sense of power, but we don't think clearly, so we're actually rather foolish when we get angry. We make rash decisions, impulsive actions, and we wind up in a mess. Okay. Yeah, so learn from criticism. And learn to evaluate our own actions. Just because somebody criticizes us doesn't mean it's true. And just because somebody praises us doesn't mean what they're praising us for is true either. Okay, we like the praise, we don't like the criticism. But both of them are other people's opinions, seeing that they're seeing through their periscope, their little hole, you know? But what really is more helpful than relying on other people to tell us who we are is to learn to evaluate our own actions. And this is something very important in our Dharma practice. You know, we're always getting told, check your motivation, because our motivation is the most important part of any action we do. Yeah. And so we need to evaluate our own motivations and our own actions. And as we learn to do that, then we can see more easily which things are my responsibility and which things are other people's responsibilities. Yeah. And then instead of finding fault and blaming, yeah, to say, but we are both ignorant sentient beings, aren't we? Yeah, we're both ignorant sentient beings who want to be happy and don't want to suffer. Yeah, can I have compassion for myself being ignorant? Then can I have compassion for the other person being ignorant? Okay, so these are things really to think about very deeply in our meditation, yeah, because they provide a different way to see situations, yeah. And there's two words, well, there's more than two words, but two words in this context that I think should be banished forever: fault and blame. But these are two words we use a lot, yeah, starting when we're this big, yeah. Yeah, those of you who have siblings, how many of you have brothers or sisters? Yeah, okay, so you know that when you fought with your sibling, it was always their fault and they started it, right? Yeah. When mom or dad came and said, "You're driving me crazy. Stop screaming at each other. Stop fighting." What did we say? Point the finger. Yeah, it's my brother's fault. It's my sister's fault. Oh, I'm the innocent one. Yeah, so blame them, mom or dad. It's not my fault. Yeah, so we learn that as toddlers, and we still, as adults, are mentally toddlers, you know, because it's always somebody else's fault. Yeah, but I think we need to stop thinking in terms of fault and blame. Yeah, because just the words fault and blame, they imply, you know, bad, evil, punish, this kind of things. Yeah. And that attitude does not solve problems. Okay. So often when there's a problem, okay, I read this in a book called Getting to Yes. Some of you may have read it. It was very popular years ago. But there's some wisdom in that book. And they say when there's a problem or a conflict, instead of seeing it, me here and the other party there, and we're fighting, yeah, because it's their fault and they're to blame. Instead, see it as we're both sitting together on this side, looking at the problem together. Yeah. So we have a problem. We disagree about who takes out the trash. Yeah. Marriages break up over issues like that, you know, because taking out the trash symbolizes many other things. So instead of, you take it out. No, you take it out. No, you take it out. I took it out last time. Yeah, no, I took it out last time. Instead of that, you're both on this side looking at the trash. Yeah. The trash is the problem. Yeah. Everybody wants the trash to be taken out, right? Nobody wants the trash to build up inside the house. Yeah. So can we come to some conclusion about, who takes the trash out? And what about the conclusion of neither of us want the trash to build up? So how about whoever sees the trash as building up, just take it out and bring the garbage can in, and it's done in 5 minutes. Yeah. Much less time than arguing about who takes out the trash. And if I take it out more times than you take it out, that's okay. It doesn't mean I'm being exploited. Yeah. It doesn't mean that, you're a misogynist. It doesn't mean, that whatever I'm imputing. Yeah. Or if you take it out more than I take it out, thank you. I'm grateful because both of us want the trash taken out. Okay? So to look at the problem, we're on the same side wanting to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now our problem is, I've gone over time. My fault. Blame me. I know you're all suffering because you have to go pee-pee and you want to have you want a snack. But I did it with a good motivation. So what to do? Okay. So in the meditation that you're going to do, pick out some situations in which you've been criticized or in which you've had a problem, and try and do, the thing. Do I have a nose on my face or do I have antlers? Yeah, if you have a nose, take responsibility. If you have antlers, take responsibility. If you have neither a nose nor antlers, then, don't get mad at the other person. There's just been a misunderstanding. Okay.